Okay, so last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, there was a problem with the Chia blockchain. A coinspend got into the mempool, and things generally went kind of haywire for a little while, and everybody had to upgrade. And we never really got to talk about what was the underlying thing, how did this come to play, and what was the developer who stumbled across this problem doing at the time. I would like to welcome Drako Pensulo to the stage. He is going to tell us a little bit about himself, what he was doing, and we're going to take a look at how he managed to cause the Chia blockchain to have an issue. So, Draco, if you could just briefly give us a little background on yourself, can you tell us your experience in Chia, what you were doing, and yeah, kind of set this up for us. Help us understand why you were able to do this, and were you setting out to try and find bugs in Chia, or was this something else that you were doing that led up to you ended up causing an issue on the chain?
Sure, no problem. Welcome, everyone. About myself a little bit, I started to be interested in Chia ecosystem. I learned about it when the mainnet launched in March 2021, and I liked it a lot right from the beginning. And the main reason was that it was much different from Bitcoin. One thing which I didn't like about Bitcoin was that they calculate those hashes all over again, what is very energy consuming, and I didn't like that aspect. So when I saw that there is a project which makes it cheaper from the power usage perspective, I was excited. The idea that you can just create plots on a hard drive once and then use them for years for farming, that's just brilliant in my opinion. Um so I started slowly. I had a small farm. uh, I used Raspberry Pis for that. I think even for some time I had a harvester running on Raspberry Pi 02W. It worked for some time, but then it stopped working, so I did not upgrade. But that was very interesting to see that this very low level hardware was able to handle the harvesting part of farming. Um, Later this new NFT standard appeared on Chia network, and quite early, I wanted to learn how to create my my own collections of NFTs, how to create NFTs. So I created some using CLI. So I have never used those NFTR or those other services. I always just use CLI basically, and I had some ideas. I mean those NFT collections are not very professional at all. Uh, One thing which I wanted to have as an NFT collection was the Mandelbrot set. And the reason was, that's quite interesting. The reason was that back in 90s, when I was learning about computer programming, it was Turbo Pascal and assembler. I got interested in the mathematics behind those fractals, and I decided to implement this Mandelbrot set, so that it can be displayed on my screen. So I implemented that. I used some x86 assembler. The image was created. It took like about, I think, 3 or 4 minutes for one frame to be created, for the whole image to be created, and then I added some colors to it so that the colors change, and that way, I had 255 distinct pictures. So I decided to use those and make an NFT collection. Um, yeah, so it's there. But the main goal was to learn about this NFT standard and how to use it.
And when you were starting to learn about the NFT standard, you learned that there was a thing called a singleton, right?
Well, back then, not really, because back then, this Chia Lisp and this coinspend model, it was, I think, 2022, was still a mystery to me to some extent. Okay, I wanted to learn it, and I was reading about it, but I think at that time I was not really getting it. It came later. It came later when I finally started to understand, the coinspend model and the Chia Lisp, programming. Uh, with this Lisp programming, I had some experience about 20 years ago when I was in college. We had a class on I was computer science major and also math major. Uh, we had a class on different methods of programming, and this functional programming in Lisp was one of the methods presented back then.
That was the first class I ever had to take when I was in computer science in college, and it was the class they used to wash people out of the program. They tried to get people to fail, and this was the first class. So you had to learn Scheme, which was a Lisp variant, and it was so
Okay.
impossibly hard for anybody to learn or understand that they tried to fail and have people drop the class. So yes, that was also my experience. That Lisp was what they used to try to get people to quit.
Oh, that's very interesting. No, it was not the reason for me. They just wanted to present many different ways of programming. So Lisp was one of them. Some people, we had to implement probably some small things in Lisp. I don't remember. And we had some other also languages presented there, like Prolog and some other things, which I don't remember. But anyway, that was 20 years ago, and of course, after I took that class and passed, I never used Lisp until I saw Chia Lisp, and then first I learned about the coinspend model. When I understood it, then the Chia Lisp part became easier to be understand. And so at the time when I was creating those collections, I did not understand Chia Lisp well enough. So maybe I just heard the word singleton and other things, but it was too early back then for me to do more in that direction. Um, yeah. So and then I had some other ideas. I had one idea for a collection like a tutorial collection to teach people how to use Chia CLI, but actually nobody was interested in that, so I did not continue that project. Then another one with the number pi. That this is the one which I want to eventually finish, where you have the number pi and the decimal digits of pi, appearing on the NFTs. And I have one more collection. I called it private thoughts. So that collection, when I got my new laptop a few years ago, it had a touch screen. So I decided, okay, let's do just some writing using, my finger on the screen, and let's make NFTs out of this. So that is how that collection started. And actually, within that collection, I did several interesting things with NFTs. For example, in that collection, there is one NFT where the royalty is 655.55%. Okay, so the maximum possible royalty for an NFT on the Chia blockchain. There is also one NFT which has more than 100% royalties. Inside of this collection, there is also an NFT which is an audio file, a PDF file also. So I was experimenting, to see what can be done with those different NFTs. So actually you can put you can make it an audio file or a PDF file. It's yeah.
So you're experimenting and trying to push the boundaries of what you can actually do with an NFT, messing around with the royalties, putting in various things. Okay, so this sounds interesting. And
Yeah.
through these experimentations, you're starting to get more familiar with programming in the Chia ecosystem.
Yes, it went like all together at the same time. Yeah. And for some time, so then the last collection, which was for some time, I was creating ratings for NFT collections. How to rank them. So I created those for several collections, the early collections on the in the Chia ecosystem. So I had some method to calculate it, and I created those rankings. But then I stopped doing that. Probably a better method to deal with ranking NFTs would be to use data layer, and make it more accessible, so that you have a service which presents offer files with NFT collections, and that service could look into the data layer and get a rank of each NFT within a collection. But that's something what maybe some people can do at some point. Yeah, so that was my my experience with NFT collections. And then I also was experimenting with Chia Asset Tokens with cats. So back in 2024, I created a small tail, as it is called. Tail is an inner puzzle for a Chia token. And the idea there was to have a token which can be minted by anybody. Okay, basically, you go and you mint it itself, as many as you want, and it worked. And I made it in a way so that the minting of those tokens was possible only up to a certain block. I think it was in November 2024 when it was the last time you minting that token was possible. Now minting of that token is not possible anymore. People minted, I think, 11 billion of those tokens. And an additional functionality which will appear is, I think, closer to the end of this year, when those tokens will get the ability to be melted.
What was the name of the cat?
0000. That was the name for this cat. You can find it on on Dexy. The reason for the name is that I made it so that its ID has like many zeros at the beginning. Okay, that's an unusual thing, because those IDs for those tokens usually look more like random numbers. But I was able to find a method which actually made this token to have the ID with many zeros. Let me maybe send you a
Is this the
link.
one right here?
Let me see. Yes, that's the one. Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay, so you're doing a custom tail. Very
Yes.
interesting. Very
Yeah.
fun. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was I called it the centralized issuance token. So it's my initial thinking was okay, everybody should be allowed to print money. Okay, so some people printed those tokens and now they have it. Yeah. So that was like my first like Chialis puzzle, which I used like live on the blockchain. And yeah, so this is the way I learned about Chia Lisp and Chia blockchain in general. Yeah, you have this description, you have the whole puzzle on the, you can see that this puzzle is quite simple. And yeah, it was a good exercise, a good and interesting exercise to do. Yeah. Then I also cooperated with some projects. Uh, I think the first one I cooperated with was Monkey Zoo. He asked me to do some statistics for his collections, so I did that for the Monkey Zoo project. Uh, and I also had some communication back and forth with Monkey Zoo about his project. I think it's a great project. I hope it will get traction soon. Uh, then also I NamesDAO project asked me to prepare a ranking for their names. They have those XCH names, like in the form of NFT. And I was asked to prepare a ranking of those. That was an interesting task also, because you basically, how do you rank different strings of letters, one higher than another, which one is better, which one is worse, of course, if it goes about those names, you want to have the shorter names to be higher in the ranking and the long names to be lower. That was one. So I found a quite an interesting metric to actually do that. So a metric in the sense which measures the distance between two strings of letters. Okay, so that was the metric. I don't remember its name right now, but it had a name attached. A person who actually invented that. Unfortunately, I don't remember at this point. Anyway, so this metric measured the distance between strings of letters. Okay, and in this NamesDAO collection, there were, I think, about 6,000 names. So now you can measure distances, one to another. Okay, and so you get those numbers, those distances, but then you somehow need to decide, how to put those in order. So you take one name, the one which you want to rank, and you calculate the distance to all the other names in the collection. Okay, so you have like 6,000. Oh, that's the distance. Okay, yeah.
I
So
usually I usually search things up in real time, so I was like, oh, I think
okay,
I know what that
that's
distance
now
might
I
be.
remember. That's the
Yeah,
distance I
I'd
use.
heard of this one before, so it
Yeah,
brought it to memory right away.
yeah. So and then it was to this, how to make all of this work. So my initial idea was, okay, let's sum up the distances, for a given name. Let's sum up the distances from that name to all the other names in the collection, and the one which has higher sum should be higher in the ranking. That was my initial thinking. But when I look at that ranking, it turned out it was the opposite of what I wanted. Okay, so what actually worked was take a name, sum up all the distances from that name to all the other names in the collection, and then the name with the smallest sum is the name which should be in the top of the ranking. Okay, so that way I had a ranking where indeed short names appeared in the top and long names appeared in the bottom. And I had even a Raspberry Pi running every night and recalculating this ranking. I think it lasted for about a year. Yeah, then now it is not online anymore. But it was also an interesting exercise and interesting thing to do. Yeah.
Okay, but through all of this experimentation working, you're learning, you're doing stuff for a variety of different projects. So let's get to the fun part, which is you ended up somehow managing to break the Chia blockchain. So you started working with Chia dev tools, and you started working on something that is known to programmers in this space, which is there's a thing called a singleton and a singleton launcher. And the singleton is sort of this a singular type of entity. So the whole idea here is that if you have an NFT or a variety of different types within Chia end up needing to start from Singleton. And there's this thing called a Singleton launcher. And so what you did was you found that somebody had sent some money to the Singleton launcher, and what you wanted to try and go collect that little bit of Chia that was sitting there. Is that kind of the genesis of this?
So the genesis of this was that I wanted to learn about singletons. I wanted to learn how to create them, how to transfer them, from one address to another, and how to melt them. So I started to experimenting on testnet. That was a week before about a week ago, the whole thing happened. So I used as you said, I used the Chia dev tools, and I used those tools to prepare spend bundles, which then I submitted manually through the RPC call using the standard Chia wallet. So the singleton I think the easiest way to understand it is that each NFT is in fact a singleton, and the singleton has a unique number attached to it. Therefore, NFTs have unique identifiers. Those unique identifiers of NFTs are exactly those unique identifier of those singletons, which are the most outside, which is the most outside puzzle for an NFT. Okay, so now each time
so it's the Singleton V11 Chia Lisp that really is the thing that we're talking about here, which I have on
yes, that's this, and each singleton is created from the same puzzle, which is called singleton launcher, and that puzzle, since it's a fixed puzzle, it has a fixed puzzle hash, a fixed address. And when you go to the to an explorer and you enter that address, you will see hundreds of thousands of coins being spent, which had that puzzle hash, which had that address. Okay, the reason is that each time, for example, an NFT is created, within one block, this singleton launcher coin is created and spent immediately. Okay, so to create one NFT, I think about 4 coins have to be spent at the same time inside of one spend bundle in one block. Okay, so this singleton launcher coin is created and immediately spent. But as I said, that was not the main reason. I experimented on testnet on February 9th exactly. So I created those. I created first spend bundle. Well, first I sent some XCH tokens on the testnet to that singleton launcher coin. So it was sitting there waiting to be spent. Then I prepared the second spend bundle, which actually created the singleton. Okay. Then the third spend bundle, which transferred that singleton to a new address. And finally, the fourth spend bundle, which melted the singleton. And at the same time, I was preparing a document which I wanted to share, with people so that others who would like to learn about singletons, could try to follow my steps and learn from it, hopefully. Okay. So I almost had this document ready, but then I got an idea. Okay, let's check what happens on mainnet. And I observed that on mainnet, this singleton launcher address actually had one unspent coin of 0.3 XCH. So then I thought, okay, that would be interesting to actually, show people that there are sometimes free coins on the mainnet which can be intercepted. Okay, so essentially I prepared corresponding spend bundles, but this time they were to work on the mainnet. So I had those spend bundles prepared, and I think it was a day before the Valentine's Day when that was, I think, Thursday night, when I wanted to execute all of this, have this document finalized and everything, posted on my GitHub. So initially things went well. That is, this 0.3 XCH, after I executed the first spend bundle, allowed me to create a singleton. At that stage, everything was still fine.
So you claimed the 0.3. You actually did it.
No,
You pulled it.
I used that 0.3 to create a singleton which had this value of 0.3. Usually singletons have values of one module only.
Right, right.
But this one I used, but you can use an arbitrary odd value. So this 0.3 or minus one module, I created a singleton whose value was 0.3 minus one module, basically. So the first spend bundle allowed me to create the singleton. Okay, and the next step also went through. The next step was to transfer this singleton to another address. Okay, so I executed that spend bundle, and the singleton was transferred. And then there was the last step. The last step was to actually melt the singleton and grab this 0.3 XCH to my own address. Okay, and that didn't go through, and I was surprised, because then when I checked the block explorer, I saw that this singleton got spent somehow. It was not me who spent it, but it got spent somehow. Then I started to think, okay, probably somebody has a bot running, and maybe is trying to grab, XCHs from this particular address. But honestly speaking, that seemed to be quite unlikely. And the other thing which came to my mind, okay, maybe it's some kind of a bug, but I didn't really took that into too seriously, that idea, because I didn't know how to. Well, I didn't realize where the bug could come from. Okay, so I took it as a possibility, but I was more leaning toward the idea that somebody had a bot running. Okay, but it was already the time, after I made this, I transferred this singleton to a new address. That was already the time I noticed that, or I learned about that later only, that was the time when the mempool got full. Still, the creation of blocks was possible, but the mempool was full all the time. Okay, and I didn't know that really. I didn't pay attention to this mempool. I just thought that it is a different reason. I didn't make this connection that it was my spend which caused this mempool to be full. Okay, somebody I think mentioned on Twitter on Friday, like about Friday noon, that the mempool was full and the fees got higher. But I think people were thinking that it was another dust storm. Yeah, you have that it was, but now it was not. So then, well, I still
Right,
didn't.
it's right here. So I pulled up the dashboard. This is when all of a sudden the mempool gets kind of goes crazy.
Yeah, exactly. But I did not give up the idea of grabbing this 0.3 XCH. I saw that my singleton was being spent all over again. So my pre-prepared spend bundle, which I had to melt that singleton, didn't work anymore because the coin was already spent. So then I had to prepare a new spend bundle. But the problem was that I couldn't do it manually because it was too fast. Okay, 1 minute between transaction blocks, it was not enough for me to actually prepare a whole spend bundle manually. So already on Thursday night, I got the idea that, okay, probably I need to have a Python script which does it for me. And on Friday morning, I implemented that script, but I didn't execute it. Okay, because I had some other things to do. I went to work. I came back Friday night about 6 p.m. I think it was about 6 p.m. between 6 and 7 p.m. And I had some time, so I said, okay, let's execute it quickly. So I executed this spend bundle which melted the singleton, I got this 0.3 XCH to my address, and I was happy. And I still had this document to be published, but I didn't have time to publish it at that time because I went to a concert. And after I came back from the concert, I just quickly published this document on GitHub and went to sleep. Okay, and I woke up on Saturday morning, reading about a new Chia wallet.
This is the document right here that you're talking about, right? The one I got.
Yes, this is this document. Yes, this is this document, which I think there should be a date somewhere. That was Friday night when I published it.
Lucas, are you going to refer to this as the Valentine's Day Massacre from now on? Is that the?
I was thinking. Well, I don't know. With the actually, I like the Valentine's Day Massacre. My working title was 25 cents in a couch cushion or something along those lines. 0.03 ch rolling around the mempool.
Yeah, Valentine's Day Massacre. I like this. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah. So on Saturday, morning, I learned that there were problems, serious problems with the Chia blockchain, but it crossed my mind that possibly it could be my fault. But I was not really, believing myself in it. But during the day when I started to read more about that, I discovered, I think at some point, that this singleton of mine was spent 360,000 times, and then
So there's like some kind of a looping thing that's happening, right? It's like there's a coin that's created, the coin is spent, and this just keeps going on and on,
Yes.
and somehow it has gotten itself into this state where it's just spending itself out of control, and you've somehow managed to make it managed to invoke this, but you weren't intending to break the chain. You were not trying to do anything. You sort of just stumbled across this in a very innocuous way, kind of.
No, that was completely unexpected. And I started to make the connection between the problem and my puzzle only like later on Saturday. When I realized that you have only 4,600 blocks a day, yet the singleton was spent 360,000 times during this 24 hours period. So it meant that it had to be spent thousands of times in each transaction block. So then I started to think, okay, that was probably the reason. And well, the real reason was some bugs in the official Chia wallet. Okay, most people use the official Chia wallet and the Chia's implementation of the farmer. And as I understand, there were 3 bugs.
Yeah, and I think you somehow errantly tripped over the singleton fast forward spend, which one of the developers in the Chia ecosystem who used to work at CNI, Sebastian Trepka, he's talking about it here, this singleton fast forward spend.
Oh, okay. This what you display now on the screen. This one I didn't have chance to read yet, but I was told that it had something to do with this fast forward thing, but I don't know the details. I don't know the details about this. I don't know what are the advantages of having that. What's the main reason, and so on and so forth. So no, I didn't know about this fast forward thing, but apparently a bug in this part of their code made things to work the way they worked, or the way they didn't it didn't work. So yeah.
Okay. All right. So anyway, keep going.
Yeah. So so that was basically it.
So when you had a chance to publish this, how did people track you down? Like, how did you end up getting connected to CNI?
Oh, okay.
How did the sort of resolve, like when they caught wind of the fact that the blockchain was in serious trouble, somehow you got looped in? How did you get connected?
Oh, so one more thing which I did after I published this document on GitHub, I also posted on Discord in the Chia Lisp channel on CNI's Discord asking about this, okay? But I didn't really get any feedback, so that was Friday night, okay? And then I think I posted once more on their Discord on Saturday morning, but once I started to realize that maybe this singleton was the reason of the farmers to stop working, I did not post anymore on the Discord, because my thinking was, okay, if this is what made all the problems, probably there should not be too much publicity at that point before they actually fix things. Okay, so I did not keep pushing on the Discord, asking all those questions. Now we can talk about this because it has been already fixed, so there should be no problems of this type anymore. And during one of the unrecorded Twitter rooms, or whatever they are called, Rigidity, told me that they actually had to work, like the whole night, to fix the issue. So I really
this was an all hands on deck moment. Essentially, the block production was significantly impaired due to this, and I think it was HPOOL or NoSSD that carried the chain forward for a period of time while they rushed out a fix, and then this is when everybody had to upgrade to 2.5.1. So yeah, it was a big serious issue that you stumbled across for sure.
Yeah, so I have to say I'm sorry to all those guys. They didn't have a nice time during the Valentine's night as they could have otherwise. Instead, they had to stay awake during night and work. That's probably not well. Rigidity said it was interesting, so okay, so maybe that's a positive side, so. Yeah, but completely unexpected, and well, I'm happy that CNI was able to catch, some of those errors at this stage. Maybe it is better for them, for those bugs to be catched right now rather than later. I think we all expect Chia to get more traction, to be more and more popular. So if something like that happened when there is already a lot of interest in Chia, that would be, I think, worse for the whole project than it was.
Yeah, I look forward to the new era of what I hope is where Chia and CNI and everyone that's involved in the ecosystem really tries to hammer on this chain, because it's important, and it's one of the things that Bitcoin is currently going through, is asking itself how substantial should the programming language be? Because when you have what's called a Turing complete programming language, which we have in Chia Lisp, it enables you to do just about anything on chain. But with that great power also comes, the unintended side effects, which in the world of Ethereum, you've got these gas fees, and you're supposed to have a halting whenever you spend too much gas. It just says, well, I can't run this anymore, and so I'll just stop. And so there are mechanisms in place on other chains that are intended to make it so that you can't end up in some sort of an infinite loop. And I think what you hit was a weird edge case within the mempool, where a certain specific feature got tripped against errantly, and then allowed for something to kind of run out of control that didn't have a guard in place around it. And so this idea that you could have a computer that just runs forever and never stops is something that we run into in programming all the time. And I'm sure you've hit it when you're writing assembly or something. You create some kind of a loop and you mess up the condition, and it just sits there forever. And eventually you just say, Control C, I'm just going to stop this. I must have made a mistake. But in the world of a blockchain, if you do something like that, there's no easy way to fix that. You can't go Control C and stop the program, because it's a distributed computer. And so if everybody's distributed computer is running in this infinite loop, the only way to fix it is to fix everybody's software and to make it so that an infinite loop is no longer possible. And that's kind of what they did. They had to rush out this fix in 2.5.1 that would make it so that the mempool couldn't be in this sort of state, and then it could flush out a transaction which wasn't ever going to go through because it had this loop or recursion or whatever you want to call it that was causing this to not go through. So the only way to fix the distributed computing thing is to fix the distributed computer. You can't go to one thing and hit Control C. There is no place to go hit Control C and stop the thing. So that's sort of what ended up having to happen, and it's a very interesting problem to have in the world of distributed computing.
Yeah, I think your summary of all of this was really, at the point. It's a perfect summary for what happened, and I think that the real solution, the real so to the problem was only in version 2.5.2. In 2.5.1, they did a small change which allowed blocks to be produced again, but the real fix appeared in 2.5.2. That's, I believe, what happened.
Well, it's an absolutely fascinating description of what has occurred here. Really appreciate you coming, Lucas. We're right about at time for the show. Did you have anything else that you wanted to ask about, or anything we want to do before we close her up?
No, I really appreciated you coming on, Drako, and describing the issue, and Grant also for providing clarity. Non-developer. I joked earlier my notes had devolved into pictures, but that was I followed along well, and I I find the description. I'm glad to understand a little bit more as to what happened with the chain, and what sort of issues are or vulnerabilities still exist. So, Drako, thanks for coming on. Anything else that you want to say before we close it out?
No, well, thank you for having me. It is the first time or the second time when somebody, invited me to talk in public, on the internet. So it's also a new experience for me. I like your show a lot. I don't have much time to listen all the episodes, but I hope you can continue doing that. Those shows which I had opportunity to listen to were very interesting. So, good luck with your with your channel, and hopefully maybe one day we can talk again.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely. And if you've got something interesting you're working on, we'd love to hear about it. And if you stumble across another bug that causes Chia to have some significant issue, we'd love to hear about it, because I think that this was fascinating to learn about. And I think that there's going to be a lot of interest in people wanting to hear more. And we'll definitely link the notes. So if you found this interesting and you want to check up on all the things that we talked about here, all the notes will be in our YouTube channel, so you can check that out. That's at the FOMO of the show. And yeah, we'll see you next time on FOMO.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good day, guys.